Hey YouTube, it's your favorite half-dead cyber loser coming at you with the hottest new content this side of Jimmy Beast Assassin Crohn's... No. Hi friends, today I'm going to be giving some thoughts on Smiling Friends Season 1. I'm not going to waste your time, let's just start. The art direction on this show is really interesting because it's kind of all over the place by design. While it's predominantly 2D animated, you also get some characters that are animated in 3D and some characters that are live action. Even within the parameters of 2D, there's no universal rules on how things should look. You have the main characters who are these strange, colorful mutant critters, yet they inexplicably share a world with these gross-looking humans, some of whom are rotoscoped, as well as anthropomorphic animals, witches, talking condiments, forest demons, Bilbo Baggins from the 1977 adaptation of The Hobbit. I could go on. They've really given themselves a lot of flexibility in what can be done with the character designs and settings in this world. I suppose it's worth mentioning that the series is headed by Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel, two internet animators who made things like I Love Cornflakes and Clown Robbery disrespectively. Their senses of humor seem to click pretty well, but their styles of illustration are pretty distinct from one another. Michael tends to draw these very simple, goofy-looking, usually human characters that look to me like funny notebook doodles. There's generally no shading and the animation is comically crude and spastic. Zach, on the other hand, draws characters with shocking, grotesque detail. They might also have a prominent nose, stringy hair, and a husky body, and sometimes he adds weird things like incision scars, bruises, and cataracts that further imply bad health. Basically, he loves drawing over-the-top, sickening caricatures. That's just his shtick. The distinction between these two guys' styles means it's pretty easy to tell which characters were designed by whom. Like, it's pretty safe to say that Mr. Boss, the Shrimp, and Ronald Reagan were all drawn by Zach, and Mr. Frog, the Wall Guy, and a lot of the background characters were probably drawn by Michael. The sculpt and styles might have been distracting in a lot of other cartoon shows, but since Smiling Friends is so laissez-faire with its visual design, things like this end up being much easier to swallow than they would have been otherwise. Talking more about animation, Smiling Friends actually goes for a pretty realistic style, in line with most other adult animations, as opposed to the more exaggerated cartoony style of something like Looney Tunes. Based on the surface level premise and character designs, one might expect something more on the cartoony end of the spectrum for a show like this, but no, it's actually very grounded most of the time. In fact, I'd say subtle body language is one of Smiling Friends' strong suits. I won't go too far in the details since I think the results speak for themselves, but it's very impressive how the animators nail all these hand and eye movements in every conversation. Putting effort into subtle animations like this not only makes the show look better and makes the characters feel that much more real, but it also makes the over-the-top moments stick out way more. Like the fact that Mr. Frog animates at inhuman speeds really accentuates and adds to his character, since he, as an unpredictable, unhinged, violent psychopath, stands out among otherwise realistically animated characters. So yeah, I really don't have much of anything to complain about with the visuals. I think they did pretty good. The voice acting in general is well done. It's Michael and Zach as most of the characters, and for people who aren't necessarily professional voice actors, I think they do a pretty good job. Especially with those moments of realistic, sort of bickering dialogue. I think the Brazil episode could be seen as a flex with how good they are at executing that kind of scene. The rest of the voice cast is great too, I don't really have any complaints about them. But I guess since this is the Smiling Friends critique, I'll just say, and this is actually really petty, there are a couple moments that I think could have used another take, like the delivery is just a little weird. Like, here's Charlie pronouncing homunculus, like homunculus.
Dude, you're gonna love this place. I've been coming here since I was a homunculus.
Just little things like that make the execution on a lot of these jokes a bit bumpier for me. But the fact that these moments stand out to me goes to show how solid the rest of the vocal performances are here. There are a couple of moments where live action actors are used with interesting results. I'm quite fond of the actor for Salty. Performance kind of reminds me of like a Tim Robinson character.
Hazard my food linked to 15 deaths in the past 4 months alone?
I didn't do fucking shit. I didn't rig shit. I've been waiting a long time for a hit on Corncob TV. I didn't fucking do this.
But then you have the Dan Aykroyd clone, who isn't awful, but again, I feel like he just needed more takes. He just kind of talks too fast, so the ominous tone he's trying to portray doesn't come through, and it's just kind of hard to hear what he's saying, really.
If today's people put down their newfangled gizmos and gadgets for a brief moment, they'd probably start rambling on about nonsense. And if you knew what went on in here, you'd freak out. I guess I'm just a bit more demented than most.
Newscaster Lady was good. Smiling Friends has a number of celebrity cameos in just its first season. They're generally handled pretty well. Like, it feels like they've actually tried to take these famous voices and integrate them into the world. My favorite is Gilbert Gottfried as God because it's funny and it works whether you're familiar with him or not. If you are, it's really funny to imagine Gilbert Gottfried playing God, but if you aren't, it's still funny to hear a version of God that sounds like Gilbert Gottfried.
By helping the evil devil, you confronted your own problems. I hope you learn from this cool experience.
On the flip side of that though, you have the Chills cameo, which I don't like. It's definitely more of a look I recognize that sort of deal, because the character he plays has zero significance in the story, and his line isn't even an actual joke, it's just a reference, so people who don't recognize his voice will probably be confused by this line. Maybe they could bring back Chills in the future, because it seems like a bit of a waste to use him on just this moment. They could even bring back this blue character and do something else with him. I don't know. Why not? Chim and Parley? Pim and Charlie are great leads. Pim is naively optimistic and whimsical and is passionate about making fucking smiles happen, while Charlie is more apathetic and seems to see smiling friends as just a job. So immediately we get what they're about, but it's not like these are the only character traits. While Pim is the optimist, he's also often put in a bad mood and does bad things sometimes. My favorite time is when he gets fed up with Charlie putting down his Christmas spirit and confronts him about it, and just has a really real argument about it with him. Likewise, while Charlie is the pessimist, he's still like a nice enough guy. He's just more down to earth, laid back, and rational than Pim. Also, he's Christian, so for what they are, Pim and Charlie seem like reasonably deep characters, and they have good chemistry with one another. Unfortunately, the three other main characters, Alan, Glep, and Mr. Boss, haven't gotten as much development yet. Glep does seem like a good enough side character. He's a lot like R2-D2, you know? Like, he speaks in a fictional language, he's small, yet he's feisty and confrontational. I think I get this guy. We haven't seen a lot of him yet, but I think he's cool. Mr. Boss and Alan are much more iffy for me. Mr. Boss is obviously crazy, but probably well-meaning. I think the thing that throws me off with him is his actor's tendency to switch between accents, which I just don't understand.
No? Now get out there and make someone smile.
My best theory is that it's supposed to be him switching between personalities, but I don't really see any correlation between his accent and his assumed personality, so it's hard to say. Maybe there's a real-life psychopath out there that I don't know about that talks like this, but I don't know. It just didn't read for me, and I assume it didn't read for most other people either. I talked to a couple friends about it, and yeah, they just didn't know what to make of it. Mr. Boss also doesn't seem to have any real chemistry with any of the other characters. Nobody ever has a meaningful conversation with him or even seems to properly register his insanity. What are the characters' opinions on him? Are they intimidated by him? Do they just think he's quirky and misunderstood? Or are they genuinely concerned for his mental health? For now, it's just hard to say. Finally, we have Alan, who's probably the weakest of the main bunch. The first episode is the best look we get at him. He has an obsessive tendency to count things, and in his subplot during the episode, he's searching for his precious piece of cheese, which, side note, this is the most flame I'm going to give in this video, but this bit always kind of sounded like an epic bacon Penguin of Doom joke to me. I know it's 100% not what they were going for, but that's just how it comes off, unfortunately. But anyways, aside from potentially suffering from OCD, we don't really learn much about good old Alan. And after the first episode, he's so sidelined that he rarely gets any lines, and when he does, he's always given the straight man role, so the only impression we get of him is that he's pretty much a normal guy, except in this one episode where he's obsessed with a very epic and very random piece of cheese. I'm sure they have a pretty good idea of who Alan's supposed to be behind the scenes. I think we just need more time with him, and we really need to draw the line on how epic the sporks and the waffles and what have you will be in this show, and we'll be all set. So yeah, of the 5 main characters, the only ones that are strongly characterized and have good chemistry so far are Charlie and Pim. Not only should the other characters get more screen time and moments to define them, but we should also get to a point where each of these characters can be paired up and we know we'll get an interesting dynamic between them. Like, how about an episode with Charlie and Mr. Boss? Or one with Pim and Alan? What would those look like? And hey, this doesn't all have to happen at once, but I feel like if this show goes on for long enough, we should eventually get a pretty good idea of the group dynamic here. And I think that's all the big observations I have on this show right now. I have a few other more nitpicky things, but I think I'll hold off on sharing those unless Season 2 perpetuates them. Hopefully we'll get word of that soon.
Bye.